Hi guys, welcome to this issue of iDrum magazine. My name's Pat Garvey. We are, in this session, we're going to pick up where we left off, well, at least on the subject of Mozambique rhythm. A quick refresher from the last session. Here's the rhythm, but this time I'm going to play it on the cowbell. Now you'll remember the accented notes, the non-accented notes. Last time we looked at it in the context of kind of more contemporary, maybe Western kind of popular music culture-ish type stuff, okay? And we put it with quite a loud backing track in a different context. This time we're going to look at it in a slightly more traditional context, but not really, okay? So you're just going to have to follow me on that. Let's start again with our rhythm, okay? So what you'll notice from your notes is instead of putting quarter note left feet and developing bass drum and all that kind of stuff with it, we've got the samba foot pattern making another appearance. So this is the third time this has come up in this series of lessons. In my series of lessons, I mean. So we've used it before as a kind of ostinato for trying different kind of rudimental ideas and getting a bit more musical with things. We used it in the context of the paradiddle last time, and now we're using it in this context. Now this is quite tricky to get going if you've never done this before. Okay, so the thing to do would be to really try and break it down beat by beat. So by that I mean if you can get the right hand going, for example, and build it up section by section. I'm going to demonstrate it to you so that you can hear it, okay? Here it is. Two rhythms that go really rather well. The next thing that you'll see there is a left hand rhythm written for cross stick. Now if you remember from the lesson we did with some left foot independent stuff, we did a two-parter a few issues ago. You'll remember we discussed briefly that one of the rhythms we were actually playing when we took away all these 16th notes was a 3-2 rumba clave. This rhythm's based on a 3-2 rumba clave. It's just I've pushed the two side forward ever so slightly. Okay, so the two notes that form the two side I've pushed forward ever so slightly. On your notes, just so you've got it there for context, I've got the rhythm written as I'm going to play it and as we're thinking of it in 16th notes and the 2-3 rumba clave cut time so that you can see what they look like. You should spend a bit of time with those rhythms and again, do some more research because there's so much out there. So what we're going to do now is get the Mozambique pattern happening and slowly start to add our right hand rhythm. This is the right hand rhythm is like this because when you start to see what we're going to do with it, it all starts to make sense. Okay, so right hand pattern. Now this is tricky. It starts to get tricky pretty much from now on, if it's not tricky already. Okay, so what we're going to do now is put the Mozambique rhythm with the samba with the left hand. This could take some time, doesn't matter, just work on it. This stuff took me ages when I was first introduced to it, okay? And it still does when I'm working on something new. So a nice little groove, okay? The more you get comfortable with that, the more you can then refer back to this video, okay? And what you then can start doing is thinking about the left hand melodically, okay? So as a melody, more than just a rhythmic pattern, okay? In context of the drum kit. And of course, how you voice that depends on how that melody starts to work in context of the rhythm. So this is the first thing we're looking at doing. The initial part is building the rhythm up, okay? And really getting it to a point where you understand it. The second part is to be able to start thinking about it musically and melodically, okay? So I'll build it back up again, and I'll start playing the left hand on the snare drum. I've got the snares off. And then I'll start moving it around and changing the order of the voicings, which therefore changes the type of melody that I'm creating. So the pattern starts to develop. The other thing I really love doing with these kind of things is putting on as many bells as I can get my hands on. Today I've got 3, okay? This one over here, and these 2 guys coming off the hi-hat as well. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to play that melody between the bells, between the 2 bells on my left-hand side. And you'll see how it develops further. So. So you can hear, as I adjust the shape of the melody, if you like, I kind of think of it as a shape. It changes the pattern again and again. If I bring my left foot into this now, okay, on this jam block thing that I've got down here, we're now going to get something altogether different. I'm not playing anything different, it's just where I'm putting things. So. As you can hear, it starts to change things again. Now, the next thing you can kind of start doing is augmenting the pattern slightly. So what I was throwing in the odd flam then on cowbells, which starts to sound quite interesting. So I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to throw flams in on those cowbell notes where the 2 hands fall together. I personally think when you start doing that kind of thing, it sounds better if you play the flams more open. It also has a greater degree of authenticity. And by open, I just mean the difference, how close the notes are. So for example, if I play a very closed flam on the snare, It's closed because the notes are very closed. If I play it open, it's open because the notes are very open. I'll play it again, bearing in mind the whole open-close thing. That's one application. Okay, thinking melodically. Now, in the first lesson on this stuff, the first session in the last issue that was, I said, bear in mind the whole thing about accented and non-accented notes. And here's why. Because if we take exactly the same pattern, the Mozambique pattern, with the right hand that we have played on the hi-hat so far and the cowbell, and play that pattern somewhere else, okay, for example on a tom, except I'm going to play all the accented notes on the rim of the tom, okay, so all the down strokes basically, i.e. they're going down, and I'm going to play all the non-accented notes on the actual tom itself, okay, the up strokes, the ones that are going up. So here's what we had on the hi-hat. Here's what we had on the cowbell. Here's what we have if we take that exact same thing and put it on the tom. Now, you could play that anywhere. I could play it on the snare. I'm not playing anything different in terms of the notes or the order of the notes. It's just how I'm thinking about them and what I'm doing with them. So it's about creating something. And it creates something new because now I've got two rhythms for the price of one, basically. If I put that with the left-hand rhythm, remember we spoke about the flam, so you can throw a few of those in. Now I'm going to play that with the feet, okay? So here's the Mozambique pattern, but now in this context. Sounds like a completely different pattern, but it's exactly the same. It's just what we're doing with it. Now, here's where this left rhythm and the whole kind of design in it comes in. I'm now going to play the left rhythm on the tom, okay? My left hand rhythm on the tom, and just listen to what happens with the rhythms that it starts to create. Starts to get really quite interesting. If I then take this left hand and start thinking melodically with it again, okay, we can create a load of different kind of sounding stuff. So I'm just going to move my left hand between the snare drum and tom, okay, and keep everything else as it just was. starts to sound different again. It's only the same thing though. Now I'm going to move my right hand to the snare drum. Okay, and I'm going to put my left hand back as a cross stick pattern, and I'm going to throw in some flams again and try and open the rhythm up, and again we get something completely different. So I'm throwing in a lot of open flams, makes it sound quite kind of dirty and streety. It's a bit of a naughty rhythm actually. You get a lot of use out of it. Again, it's great for kind of solo ideas or kind of drum break ideas, that whole kind of thing. This is a concept we spoke about in the second issue of iDrum Mag actually, when we were looking at this rhythm. I'll just play you the rhythm that we were looking at, because if you haven't seen it, you might well want to go back and have a look at it, because we talk about the beginning of all of this kind of stuff and moving things around. Here's the rhythm that we discussed in issue 2. The reason I bring that up is because when I play the Mozambique thing on the snare drum, you notice you can get 3 or 4 sounds out of the one drum, because I've got that sound, I've got that sound, I've got that sound, and I've got that sound. So 4 sounds. This issue, I've made about, well, it's one bass line, but I've put it at a few different tempos for you to really just kind of be able to work on this kind of thing and just kind of mess around with it. If you're new to all of this, then this is an awful lot of information, and that's fine. This is the great thing about this format, is this is something you can always come back to. You could watch 2 minutes of this and work on it for 2 months and come back to it for the next 2 minutes. You know, it's great if you use it properly, and so do keep coming back to it, keep working on it. I'm going to play to a couple of different tempos of those bass lines, and then we'll sign off. So that's it for this issue. In the next issue, we're going to pick up on part 3 of this and push the boat out on quite an interesting groove, again in a different context. I hope you've got something out of this. Remember, go back, have a look at the guys that have really done stuff with this rhythm. Look at where it's come from, all of that stuff. Pay attention to the stuff that I've put in the leader for this month, because there's another reference. And I'll see you next month. Stay safe.